Hello everybody, my name is Besfort Rrecaj and I work as Professor of Law, International Law Department at University of Pristina, Hasan Pristina, Faculty of Law. President of the Atlantic Council of Croatia has requested me to do this educational video on NATO's role in Kosovo, and I gladly accepted it. Basically, when we are talking about NATO's role in Kosovo, first of all, we have in mind NATO's humanitarian intervention in Kosovo in a bid to halt Yugoslav and Serbian military, paramilitary, police machinery committing atrocities all around Kosovo. These atrocities led to around 1 million people displaced, most of them outside of Kosovo, mainly in Albania, Macedonia, Montenegro, and elsewhere in European countries, but also around 12,000 civilians killed in massacres, extrajudicial killings, and other brutal acts all around Kosovo. These crimes were proved also by the International Tribunal for former Yugoslavia in their indictments and judgments, final judgments against Serbian political and military leaders at that time. NATO's humanitarian intervention in Kosovo spurred many debates, political and also legal debates, then and even now, mainly going around its legal basis for intervention. Two important points relate to these issues. First, whether internal foundations, legal foundations of NATO allow for NATO's involvement outside of its borders. And second thing is lack of UN Security Council resolution for those strikes. I do not want to delve too much in this point. Nevertheless, I would like to reiterate here the question that was asked by Kofi Annan before the UN General Assembly plenary session, responding to critics about NATO's mission and airstrike in Kosovo, stating that if NATO humanitarian intervention in Kosovo was illegal, then what is the proper way to stop such machinery committing crimes against humanity, genocide, crimes of war, ethnic cleansing in Kosovo, but also all around the world? And I think that the question in itself is quite telling. Needless to say, such debates prompted Canadian government to fund an international group of experts, international lawyers, to bring a document about future related operation and how the world should handle such situations, such as in Kosovo. And of course, that document is titled The Responsibility to Protect, or we call it sometimes R2P. And basically, it states that when the government is involved in crimes such as genocide, ethnic cleansing, crimes against humanity, war crimes, etc., or the government is somehow not able to protect its people from such crimes, then it is the responsibility of international community to react and to bring to a halt such operations. NATO's role in Kosovo from 10th of June 1999 is founded on the legal basis, namely Resolution 1244 of 10th of June 1999 and the technical military agreement which was signed one day earlier, that is 9th of June 1999, between NATO's representative and Serbia, Yugoslav army representative at the time. So the mandate of objectives and the mission of KFOR in Kosovo, or Kosovo forces in Kosovo, are emphasized in these two documents. And of course, now we are talking about 20 years, more than 20 years later, and although these points may remain the same, in practice, NATO's role in Kosovo has changed a lot. How it has changed? First of all, it has changed in size. NATO's mission in Kosovo, or KFOR, at the beginning had around 60,000 strong forces in Kosovo. Now they have around 5,000 forces in Kosovo. With regards to its mission at the beginning was to help create secure environment in Kosovo, to help civilian authorities established by UN Security Council Resolution 1244, mainly international administration of Kosovo, to rebuild Kosovo, to help return refugees in Kosovo, and also to help with the transformation of Kosovo Liberation Army, or Ushtria Shlirimtare e Kosovës, UÇK. As time went on, in 2008, we declared our independence, and today's KFOR's role in Kosovo is mainly to act as a backup force if there is a need from Kosovo authorities. So basically the first responder in Kosovo is Kosovo institutions, mainly the Kosovo police, and only if there need be, then KFOR might react in certain sensitive situations. Nevertheless, KFOR mission in Kosovo is still valid. UN Security Council resolution is still a valid document, including technical military agreement signed on 9th of June 1999. And this presents some of the key challenges that KFOR or NATO mission in Kosovo has. And these challenges relate to, first of all, Kosovo not being a security consumer. And in order to not be a security consumer due to political situation, Kosovo has started a dialogue with Serbia in what is known as the normalization of relations between Kosovo and Serbia. This dialogue will eventually create a secure environment where NATO's presence in Kosovo shall not be deemed as necessary, and that we create a secure environment in Kosovo through our institutions. Another challenge related to the future of KFOR mission in Kosovo is its mandate itself, mainly Resolution 1244. As we know, and many of you would probably know, the only way to abrogate Resolution 1244 is to go through United Nations Security Council as the only authority who can do that. And there we are talking about a bigger picture, more players involved, which might complicate a lot the abrogation of this resolution, because when we are talking about Security Council, we are talking about the role of mainly Russia, China, who are still opposing the independence of Kosovo. And this might complicate the situation pretty much when and if those countries might bargain with situation of Kosovo and want to relate it to other situations elsewhere, such as, for example, Crimea, etc., etc. And hopefully this will go smoothly, because it should be noted that if Serbia and Kosovo agree to normalize relations, then I think that Russia, China, and all other states in the world should respect it and should not use or abuse with the situation of Kosovo in order to bargain with situations all around the world. I think I'm just a little bit over 10 minutes and I have to stop it here. Nevertheless, I hope that this information was fast and substantial for your information. Otherwise, I hope we can stay in touch through other means of communications. All the best and wish you health and good luck in the future.
Hello from Tirana. First of all, allow me to thank Ms. Monika Begovic, the President of Atlantic Council of Croatia, for organizing this timely event, and second, for inviting me to be among the speakers of this very well found and well chosen event. First of all, I would like to, in my brief introduction, let's say, and then leaving you space for questions and comments and remarks, I'd like to talk a little bit about the general evaluation for the security as an increasingly important value in the international relations of the contemporary world. Why I say this? I have ranked some of the reasons very briefly, because I consider that the audience, any audiences today which are interested, are very well informed of the things. So I just try to pick up several points and then discuss about that. First, there are a lot of threats today, nowadays, linked to natural disasters because of climate and environment changes by human societies, like air and water pollution, depletion of traditional energy resources, biological changes of the microworld, like the spread, as you know very well, of COVID-19 and HIV/AIDS, and other, let's say, threatening pandemic in the future, as it's being talked more and more these days. This is one reason. Another reason for this general evaluation for the security as value is the fact that the population of the world is very, very fastly growing, and that growth of the population, of course, creates a lot of problems, because it's not anymore an isolated world, as everybody know. This world is in myriads of ways in contact with each other, the people, and so this creates problem. But also there are a lot of studies which say that the growth population, in a way, it creates some contradiction with the production of material, let's say, goods for that. Of course, it sounds at the first sight that as this is an old history about the lack of possibility of the world to keep millions or billions of people, but the statistics and the information has shown that the world today has problems with the growth rate of the population. That's why there are instructions, there are tendencies to have a moderate growth of population because of this recent study of that. That's create problems, of course, for security, because we talk about it not for the security as, let's say, a national security or security of the states, but we talk in the general sense of security, even in the human sense of the security of safe life of the people and the world standard of life, of living, and so on. Another reason is that we see today, especially recently in the years, that there are still a lot of armed conflicts and frozen conflict zones. They are widespread all over the world. There are some conflict zones or frozen conflict zone in the Balkans as well, but we'll talk a little bit later about that. So this armed conflict, which at the beginning of the 90s were not supposed to exist anymore with the spread of democracy in the former communist countries, in fact had an increase which was by many authors not expected and not foreseen, but it is a fact today. On the other side, there are a lot of immigrant flows, illegal immigrant flows. These are urged by, let's say, or because of the conflicts, some because the people are in look for a new standard of life, they look for and make efforts for a better life, and so making use of this communication possibilities, nowadays they want to go from one country to another in search of their happiness, family happiness or individual happiness. But most of these illegal immigrant flows come because of the let's say disasters, social disasters, or let's say natural disasters, or disasters because of the conflict between states and so on, such as wars or other problems, ethnic cleansing or I think which unfortunately still exists in our world. Another reason why this security, international security and security as a value for the societies has become more and more important is the fact that we see that there is a growing competition between the big power for energy resources and their resources in general. Not only energy, but even other resources. the facts, the most recent facts, I ask you to draw attention. I draw your attention to the conflict in the Mediterranean, where Greece and Turkey are in a situation of exacerbated relations between them. Also, we have threats like that, international terrorism. No need to talk about that. Also, we see that there is somehow, let's say, a hidden or open revival of the arms race. We see that with some specific states or thug states like North Korea, the efforts of Iran with nukes or nuclear weapons, and many other states which try to increase their armament arsenals for their reason, which in fact falls within this interest of competition for their national interest. Also, we have today authoritarian and dictatorial regimes like China, Russia, North Korea, Iran, Syria, etc., which of course pose a threat, maybe not an open threat, but no one can say that in a specific situation they would hesitate to create problems which are linked to the security and damage the security of the other states. Another reason for the importance of this international security as value is the fact that still in the world there are weak states. Without even that, or despite of, although a lot of investment has been made by the Western countries, United States, EU, NATO, and so on, for example, in Afghanistan, Iraq, or other investments by states or UN in African state, they are still might be called weak states with weak democratic institutions. Of course, these are fragile, and in certain situations they can be source of illegal immigration or other thing. So, in order to wrap up this first point, talking about security, let me say that in a time when our highly developed world should have been only focusing on further human and material development, the world is being more and more obliged to deal with security threats and challenges so as to make sure that the foundation of our civilizations are safe. So, my first point in this brief introduction is that the value of security has become more and more important for some of the reasons. Of course, any of you, or even me myself, if I'd like to talk longer, could find many other reasons for why this security has become so important in our world. Second, security also is very important for especially for our Western Balkans. Some reasons for that is Balkans is part of this landscape generally explained I just described so far. So, in that sense, Balkan is not, let's say, safe from the external influences, and in that sense, it is part of the world, and for the Balkans as well, security value has importance. On the other side, the Balkans has, or Western Balkans, be more specific, has some specific dimensions of security threats, and we will talk about this in some minutes. However, I would like to add something just to recall it, because I'm sure you think about that. The history, even the recent history of the Balkans, have given a lot of evidence about the fragility of this region when it comes to the security conflicts and aggressive mentalities and so on. Just mentioning the war in the last war in the former Yugoslavia. So, for these three reasons, I think that in this general important, let's say, importance international security has taken, I think Western Balkan, has also its specific. But of course, before going about what are still the challenges of things to be settled in the Balkans, let me say something which is quite evident. First of all, the Balkans, despite its old and recent history, is much more secure than before. Why I say this? There are, of course, certain arguments about that. We have in our region NATO and EU presence. No need to mention, but you know that some of the countries in the Western Balkans are member of NATO, member of EU, and almost most of them, which are not yet member, are on the course, on the way to becoming member. We can only have a difference, only two states which are still not yet decided in, for example, let's say in the NATO membership process. This is Bosnia and Herzegovina, more for its own reasons because of the problems there, and Serbia, which is still considering itself like a neutral state. But anyway, the whole Western Balkans, and probably allow me to talk in perspective terms, maybe all the Western Balkans will become one day not only member of EU, but member of NATO as well. Why is the Balkans stable for the moment and no conflicts or, let's say, serious conflicts, not to mention armed ones, are to be expected? There are NATO and EU not only present in the region, but also the process of integration, as I mentioned, are going quite well. And from year to year, we see progress from all the countries in that direction. Also, in our Western Balkans, the situation has changed in terms of the state relations. State relations have become more and more friendly. So starting on beginning from the years 90, and more after the end of the war in former Yugoslavia, 95 in Bosnia, and then 99 in Kosovo, we see that the situation of state relations has very much changed, has dramatically changed. They have become better, more friendly, and always in search of multidimensional cooperation in a lot of directions. Also, during this, let's say, more than 20 years, with a lot of these developments, with the help of NATO and EU international community, UN, why not, which is an active player in the Balkans, we see that even the mentality of people have changed, and they are more and more increasingly abandoning the aggressive nationalist attitude and behaviors. At this point, I would like to make a remark. Sometimes, to my opinion, there are the people who are more advanced in their mentality change rather than the elites. Sometimes elites like to use their nationalist attitudes or behaviors, as they call patriotism, just to justify some of their political interest. And so in that sense, they are one step behind or backward compared to the people. But anyway, without staying very much on this remark, let me say that the mentality is changing. And of course, that's an argument about why our region of the Western Balkans is stable today, much more and uncomparable with even the recent past. Also, we see that in our region, even that there are a lot of difficulties, a lot of shortcomings, we might talk about progress in economic field. A lot of investments, not to the degree all the people and the states of this let's say region would like, and there are countries which have more complaints than the others, more problems than the others. But compared to the beginning of the 90s, the economy has progressed a lot. So, because of this, let me finish this sub point saying that security for the Western Balkans is important. But first of all, let me say the Balkans, let me repeat, the Balkans is safe and stable for the moment. Are there problems in the Western Balkans? Of course, there are a lot of problems. It's impossible to have a clear, a pure leap from a situation we had a recent war, a very terrible war with genocide and crimes and a lot of disappeared people and displaced people, to a pure, stable and perfect situation. So there are some remaining problems from the past, let's say long past and recent past. And this, of course, might be called some sources of stress, let's say, of feelings of threats in the future. And of course, these specific arguments, these specific elements or indications could be used as elements which boost efforts to try to make our region even more stable and or consolidate its stability and peace for longer and longer period, which could be called, according to my opinion, a list of these security threats still for the Western Balkans. There are some unsettled problems, as I said, from the last war in territories of former Yugoslavia. And the two biggest problems, I would say, is the situation is still not fixed in Bosnia and Herzegovina and in the relations Kosovo-Serbia. Still in Bosnia, you know, we have a Srpska Republic or a Serbian Republic which pretends to be autonomous and have problems with the consolidation of democratic institutions in the Bosnia and impeding Bosnia and Herzegovina to progress fast on the way of its integration and development in general. These are two big problems. They are, of course, not, let's say, considered as a stalemate problems, but a lot of efforts are behind this, the problem of these countries, or three countries, let's say, Kosovo, Serbia, and Bosnia and Herzegovina, to try to fix the problems forever. But they are very complicated, very difficult problems, and that's why it will take some time, even that we would like that time to be as shorter as possible. Another problem, I would say that, of course, in the years 90, many of the states in the Western Balkan, our Western Balkan, entered or made democratic revolutions. They overthrew their former communist regimes and entered the democracy, the road of democratic societies. But today, we can say that not all of the countries in our region have, let's say, consolidated or perfect, let's say, democratic institutions. We can't talk being quite sure that we have a perfect good governance in our countries. Still, there are a lot of problems linked with corruption, with illegal trafficking, with the rule of law, and many other things. So it might be considered one element which makes the stability of the region, of the countries of the Western Balkan a little bit, let's say, a source of stresses which might be linked with the ongoing the good ongoing of the processes within this side. Why I say this? Of course, if we have problems with the rule of law, of the corruption, and so on, that create problems with the population, and the population, of course, might go here and there even towards unrest. In general, in practical, of course, we have not seen so far something like that, but it should be considered a risk. So, if the democratic institutions are stable, more consolidated, of course, the society is free of possible unrests, like what happened in my country, Albania, in 1997, for example, a lot of years ago, but it might happen if the governance is not quite good. Another possible threat in my list is the influences from outside. Everybody from us knows that there were in the recent past efforts to try to make the government in Montenegro collapse, or try to influence with terrorist and violent, let's say, groupings in some of the countries. And these were a result of influence from outside. No need to mention which other countries here, but we know everybody how clear is that fact. In the country, just trying to make use of the fact that we have a mix of religions here, a mix of population, a mix of ethnicities, of course. Other factors try from outside, or states try to influence. They try to influence for economic reasons, but this kind of influence is very, very difficult to make people think that there is distinguishing between what is economy and competition, what is influence in the government, in the policies, in the policy making in general, and in the kind of the government or the political elites are let's say leading their countries. Another reason is that among these foreign influences, we have seen that there are even external factors such as illegal emigration flows. No one of us, including me, and I hope many from you, was thinking before that the flow of immigrants would have become a big problem for the Balkans, but it was. After the war, or because of the war in Syria, we have seen, and we're still seeing, a lot of immigrants going through our countries for European or North European countries, just looking to escape their problems they had home and just to secure a better life there. Or no one of us had been thinking before that would have the so-called phenomenon of foreign fighters for ISIS or Islamic States. Now this problem has been fixed, let's say more than 90%, or let's say almost fixed, but it was a problem some years ago. And thanks to the efforts, our joint efforts, now it is not any threat. But anyway, within these external influences or negative influences, of course, this might be considered a risk which can be considered in the future. International terrorism, even that he has taken some strong blows from the international community, including NATO as well, not only UN through its efforts, but NATO, EU, and so on. But still, it is a risk, and it's a risk which, if there is no vigilance, even in our Western Balkans, it might be revived and create problems. Also, as I mentioned, I repeat again, religious extremic influences. In general, the religion diversity in the Balkans has not been a problem. Only rare cases have been like that. But in the recent war, and especially now under these negative influences, they try to revive animosity between religions, which is not a tradition. So it's a great resource we have in the Balkans, that there is a good friendship and harmony between the religions, but this should be considered something not as something as going for without saying, but for that should be exercised and placed a lot of efforts to. The economic situation also, it's a big problem in the region. I would mention here, for example, Kosovo, the youngest republic or independent country in our region, which has a lot of problems with higher rates of unemployment. But of course, at the same time, with a lot of efforts to try to go out of that and improve and revitalize its economy. But still, a situation like that. I think that thanks to the efforts of EU, probably in the future, we will see Kosovo profit more and reduce or curb this rate of inflation by the help of EU. Another threat is also that which we mentioned at the beginning about the importance of security in general, the threats linked with the environment and the climate change, and also the changes in the biologic micro world. And I mentioned COVID-19, and we see now we live under this, let's say, siege of the COVID-19, the quarantine somewhere or limitation somewhere else, but it is a situation which comes because of this unseen world, invisible world, which is the biological world of viruses, microbes, and other microorganisms which are damaging for the people. All this societal and natural factors make, even for the Balkans, let's say, the situation of security very, very important. Now, of course, the Balkan is stable, as I said. The Balkan has a list of problems to be considered, to be faced, probably, hopefully not, but to be faced. But in the meantime, let me say that what can be done a lot of things have been doing and are being done, as I mentioned, but let me be more specific now in this 4-point of my brief introduction, what can be done in future. To my opinion, first of all, NATO, as the most successful organization or security and peace in the world, I think should focus our region as an objective of its full integration into NATO. I know that, as I said before, Serbia considers itself neutral, but to my opinion, the trend of developments will be like that probably the whole Balkans, the whole Western Balkans will become a day fully integrated into NATO. So after I said this, of course, there are a lot of space to think about what can be done and so on but that should be considered an objective for the Western Balkan. On the other side, we know that all the EU countries have declared their strategic goal to be integrated in EU. But I think on the side of EU, there should be intentions to make faster this process for the Balkans. Of course, criteria are very important for any country to be met. A lot of criteria, various criteria, but I think that the political dimension should be the first one, the prior one, considering the integration in European integration of our Western Balkans. Another thing or another let's say idea for the future and for trying to make Western Balkans more stable and let's say or long-term stability and peaceful area. I think that there should be acceleration of efforts to give a final solution to the problem between Kosovo and Serbia. As we saw, all of us, and I imagine that all of us which are here today have been watching with interest what happened in Washington some days ago with that economic agreement between Kosovo and Serbia at the White House in Washington, D.C. That, of course, was an economic agreement, but it was a political effort for an economic agreement. So a big movement, a historic movement, which will make the two countries move faster in the track of which should lead them towards a final agreement which will have one of the main interests of mutual recognition, state recognition between them. At this point, I would like to reiterate or to repeat what I have said in many occasions, that the 5 countries of EU who still do not recognize Kosovo should make a decision as soon as possible to leave aside this kind of attitude and consider the recognition of Kosovo. The fact that they have similar problems within their countries, like Spain, like Cyprus, like Slovakia, Romania, and so I think is not relevant, because the international community, UN, and all the other actors have agreed on the fact that Kosovo was a unique case, so it can be used as comparison, as a point of comparison between their problems and Kosovo problem. And on the other side, which is most important, is that doing that, of course, will help a lot the Balkans, will help a lot the Europe. No need to say that stability in the Balkans is so closely linked with stability in Europe. Another means of trying to face all this possible threat in the Balkans will be the comprehensive or all-comprehensive and essential cooperation for countering and facing the negative external influences on the Western Balkan. I mentioned this before as a threat, but now I say that cooperating to face this threat by all the countries needs to be deeper and deeper, meaning that all the agencies should be involved in that. They are involved, of course, intelligence agency and others, but all the efforts, all the agencies, all the institutions of the state should cooperate in all the dimensions in order to be like a block towards this possible negative influence from outside. Also, as one of the points of threats is linked with the natural disasters, and as we are having in the Balkans a very good tradition, recent tradition of facing together cases of natural, like water floods or heavy snowfalls or let's say COVID-19 now, and big fires, let's say natural fire and so on. I think that all these efforts based upon this tradition should be institutionalized, that whenever some country has some problems with natural disasters, all the countries in the Western Balkans behave like a block and act like a block all together. In each, doesn't matter in which country, in this country or that country, because that helps not only to cope with the problem, but it helps to consolidate the mentality in the whole Balkans, mentality of people who are linked with friendships, who are linked with a common future in EU and NATO, and with a common perspective of their democracies and democratic institutions. The last thing, without pretending to exhaust the list of these efforts to be made for the security and possible crisis management in the Western Balkans, is that the Balkan is in need of very large joint economic projects which involve not only the wills of all the actors in the region, state actors, but also involves the resources, without saying that this is mine, that area of land is mine, and that area of water is yours, but trying to make large joint economic projects which are at the same time let's say like a property of the Balkans. That also consolidate the peace. That links the people and the states together, links the people and the political elites together. This is what I wanted to say, and I'm available for the questions and comments and discussion after that. Thanks.